And we are live.
And we are alive. Welcome, everybody, to What
What
We're
it
Pistons Table
do?
Talk. What it do? And happy trade deadline day, everybody. Slow day. Slow day in the business world. Nothing happening.
Nope.
Not too much. Not too much.
Not much to talk about. Short stream, probably. But I'm your host, Sean Murphy, one of your hosts, alongside my guy, Cool.
It has been a day. It has been a day, actually, man. Like I'm so tired. Just one trade, one Pistons trade, and it sends everything into a frenzy, man. The whole NBA world. It couldn't be the KD trade. It couldn't be the Kyrie Irving trade. It had to be Saddiq Bey and James Wiseman.
Hey, don't forget Kevin Knox.
And Kevin Knox. Shout out to Kevin Knox. Now look, if James Wiseman winds up to be like the next the next best thing, then you know what? That Kevin Knox throw in there, that's gonna mean something.
Yeah, 100%.
We're gonna be sitting here like, yo, Troy Weaver is the GOAT. All it took to get James Wiseman was Kevin Knox and Saddiq Bey. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Also joining us today, the James Wiseman of the video editing world. No, I'm totally kidding. My guy, Carl Collins, aka at Carl Collins Prod. My guy, Carl. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. I can't complain. Busy, but you know, that's life. I'm enjoying every bit of it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I mean, nothing's more chaotic than NBA trade deadline day or the week of the deadline. I mean, I don't know about you guys. When I woke up and saw that Kevin Durant was a Phoenix Sun, everything about today was completely flipped on its head. All my expectations
you knew today was going to be crazy. When I woke up and I just knew it was going to be crazy.
And then
you know, it usually the past few years have been crazy, so it's not too surprising.
Right. And then around noon or 12:30, we got a report from Jake Fisher from Yahoo Sports that the Warriors are interested in Saddiq Bey and the Pistons are interested in James Wiseman. And I was like, well, it's Jake Fisher, so I know what's wrong. But then that actually proved to be correct, as the Detroit Pistons made a trade, first reported by Adrian Wojnarowski, a 3-team deal with the Warriors and the Hawks that sends Saddiq Bey to Atlanta, James Wiseman to Detroit, and 5 first-round picks to the Warriors, which they ultimately used to get Gary Payton II. But guys, the thing that matters to us all, number 19 overall pick, Saddiq Bey, is no longer with the Detroit Pistons. The first major draft piece of Troy Weaver's career in Detroit has been moved. And I would say the reaction to who we got in return, I would say, has been polarizing, to say the least.
Yeah, I wanna ask the people, while I shout out some of our regulars here, I wanna ask the people, put in the comments, man, what is your reactions before we get started breaking all of this stuff down? Put in the comments, how are you feeling about this trade? I know we rapped about it earlier on the trade deadline special, but hey, we had to get together with the Table Talk crew so that we could break this thing down with your favorite collection of content creators from across the interwebs.
Which, by the way, even though I technically might not be working at Woodward Sports, that does not mean I'm going anywhere on Woodward Pistons and Woodward Pistons Table Talk, man. You can't get rid of me that fast, mother. So here I am.
Adam, shout out to Adam. Peace to you too, bro. Money Train James, listen, he's one of the regulars. He is really, really, really trying to be patient with Troy Weaver, bro. We're gonna get into it today. We're gonna get into it. We're gonna make sure that by the end of this live stream, people are back to trusting Troy Weaver or Grim Reaper, Troy Reaper, whatever you want to call him, anything.
I just want
you're gonna get back there.
At least get some sleep tonight. That's my concern. Like, as long as people can, like, at least go to bed and like rest their head on the pillow by the end of tonight.
Peaceful sleep.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Shout out Rob. He said how we trade Saddiq before Killian. Listen, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. We're going to
because one of those
get
players actually has value. I mean, I'm sorry. What did I say that out loud?
Shout out to Donovan Strong too. I think we about to. Oh, there we go. There we go. Chuck.
Hold on, Donovan. I got you. Hold on. I wish you would step away from that ledge, my friend. Wouldn't understand. I'm sorry. Anyway. It's been a day.
Who else is in here before we get in?
Listen, when my basketball team acquires James Wiseman, your mind goes through some things, okay?
Sheesh. It's a day. It's a day. I'll definitely tell you that. Man, look, the comments, the engagements, everything all day has been wild. I'm saying, I look, nothing really in between. I haven't had a lot of people go, you know what? It'll be okay. People are absolutely like, y'all just haven't watched James Wiseman. So it's one side. He's great. Literally, like he's great. Let him get time. He's awesome. Then the other side is like, he's a bum. He's a literal bum. I haven't found too many people who are like, you know what? He'll be a decent pickup. So we got to figure out what is this? You know, to address Saddiq Bey. Not a lot of people are upset that Saddiq Bey was traded. I think, you know, to start the season, we all said it on the Table Talks. We said it on From Half Court. We said it on What We're Pistons podcast, What We're Sports, and probably in our sleep as well. When those options, the team options got picked up of Killian Hayes, Saddiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart, that decisions were going to have to be made on those players, and that some of those players were going to have those decisions made this season. Saddiq Bey was one of those guys where the decision was made, and clearly they were just not going to pay him. Some reports have come out via James Edwards of The Athletic that there might have been a fit issue with Saddiq Bey, that he believed he could do and be a little bit more versatile than the team was really hoping for him to be. And so that kind of led to this aspect of the team saying, hey, you know what? Let's find the best fit for Saddiq Bey. And let's find what they always wanted. They traded Saddiq or one of these players. Another top young player was the only way they were going to do this thing at the trade deadline, or 2 first-round picks. So enter James Wiseman. So not a lot of people are upset with Saddiq Bey being traded, you know, but a lot of people are just like, that's the return. It was like I could hear a collective Price is Right, like instantly. When like Carl, Sean, y'all saw when the thing went up and we're like, hey, this is kind of the report. How y'all gonna feel when it goes down? I didn't see it really. Let's say 90% of the people were like, this is gonna be trash. This is gonna be trash. Then it literally went down like Sean said, and I was like, this is a lie. Why is Woj reporting on Jake Fisher? What the frick?
Yeah, and at first I was like refreshing, like, all right, well, what else did Detroit get? Like, did they get Jonathan Kuminga? Did they get Moses Moody? Like, what else did they get in the deal? And that was it. And the realization, like in the report, as the reporting is found, and I think as we kind of have all realized from the trade itself, the value on Saddiq Bey was not as high as maybe we had perceived within our camp, but also as high as maybe Troy Weaver's original asking price was. But it is important to remember, I mean, if you do look at this trade in a vacuum, and if you were to look at it on paper or remove all context, logically you would say it is a success if you draft someone at 19 and then 2 years later trade them for the person that was drafted second overall in that same draft. Like, objectively, from that point of view, you would be increasing your value. However, James Wiseman has only played 60 professional games in the NBA. He only played about 4 or 5 games in college. He's been in and out of the rotation this year just because of the fact that the Warriors are trying to compete on a night-to-night basis. And when you have a young guy who's trying to go out and learn the ropes and, kind of relearn how to play basketball, let alone learn how to play NBA basketball, that leash is insanely short. So for with all reports suggesting that, that Wiseman was number 1 on Detroit's big board that year, and with their belief that he can be something, a lot of times you see guys go to their second stop and for whatever reason, it just clicks. A lot of times you see that it also just doesn't work out. So there's inherent risk, but I think if you take time to peel back and look at it for what it is, you are getting, like, James Wiseman is a heck of an athlete. Like, he's raw, but like what's there are some intangibles that are exciting. However, at the same time, there's also been the fact that he just hasn't been that good this year. And that's just the reality of it. So I think it's just a catch-22. The reality of it is we just don't know a lot about Wiseman yet, in my opinion. And I think that has become perhaps the most interesting storyline to wrap up the season is, what is James Wiseman?
Yeah. Carl, what about you, brother?
So it's very so at first when the initial reports came out, before the trade actually went down, I was like, James Wiseman, and I was kind of like, I wasn't too excited about it. The more and more I realized is that this trade was like a lot like the others that Troy Weaver has done. I mean, in terms of the value that Saddiq Bey actually, the fans, Pistons fans, always overvalue their players, like our players. I mean, that's just how it's been, and we've seen that, time and time again. Bruce Brown, Luke Kennard, those are just a couple examples.
You would have swore Luke Kennard, we traded away a 12-time All-Star when we traded away to Luke Kennard, dude. Good Lord.
Exactly. Andre Drummond. I mean, just now look at where we have this collection of young players, young talent. Troy Weaver clearly knows what he's doing. That's what I go back to, just trusting Troy. I mean, it seems like an impossible thing to do with this trade because I was scratching my head with it, but I mean, he clearly knows something. So that's all I think we can do is trust in Troy at this point.
Well, and again, too, real quick, Kool-Aid. I think another thing that's important as well, and again, I don't want to reveal the entire contents of the article because it is behind a paywall. I would recommend going and reading James's work if you haven't already, because it is a really insightful article about what their thoughts are on Saddiq Bey. I think the biggest thing you can take away from that is we have no idea what's going on in the inside of that locker room. We have no idea what the team dynamics are like. The only person on this panel that has the remnants of the closest thing of a clue is Kool-Aid, because he's there at press conferences, in the media room. But even then, that's only for like home games. You're not seeing like in the locker room. You're not behind closed doors. So even then, there's a limit to what we can see, right? So I think the truth of the fact is, like the one, obviously the roster is still inherently flawed. I don't think we were coming out of today with our roster having all of its holes fixed. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's it. That's all we did. Well, remember, league business opens back up in 3.5 months. That's not far away at all. And by the time it is opened back for business, the Pistons will know where they're drafting and if they're getting Victor Wembanyama or not. And that's gonna inform a lot of decisions that they're gonna make this summer. So that's just a couple thoughts I have.
Can you imagine if we? That's good, Steve.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. So can you imagine if James Wiseman ends up being the player that everyone thought he was, and we get Wemby and Duren, and like all three of them pan out to be the players that they're expected? Can you imagine like what happens?
That would be amazing. I don't even understand what we would be looking at on the court, but I want to see it.
Yep.
I would love to see that.
And in the same conference as Giannis, it doesn't hurt to have big bodies in the post.
Well, here's the problem. You all watched our game last night against the Cavaliers. We were undermanned. Like we have no size beyond Duren. That's probably, that's another thing that I was looking at. When I was looking at this trade, I'm like, well, we need size. So, and then I saw reports that he's expected to start too. I don't know.
Yep.
If that's accurate or not, but
I'll say it's from Mark Spears. So that's the outside of Woj and those guys, that's probably about as reliable as you're going to get, I'd say.
Right. So it'll be interesting. And like someone was asking in the comments, like, because I haven't really followed the Warriors. Has he been hurt or is he just not playing?
So to answer your question, he's been He's been in and out of the rotation. He's also been in between. He's also been in between their G League affiliate as well, just because since he wasn't getting as much playing time, they were sending him down to the G League just so that he could actually get some touches. So it's more so just he's been in and out of the rotation.
All right.
And as it relates to Saddiq Bey and the team and whatnot, access or not, having the proximity that we've had and being able to ask the questions that we've been able to ask, and having the relationship that we do have with the Pistons, you've gotten a lot of insight throughout the year. You don't have to really read between the lines or anything of that nature. Being able to ask, Casey certain questions, to be able to see where this offense is, see where this team is headed, to see what they believe the issues or the problems and whatnot, has been probably one of the more fulfilling things, because they're not lying to you in your face. They're sitting there and you can tell they're giving you the most honest answers, and it goes with the data, it goes with the analytics. And all year they've been stating, well, like when we went back to the beginning of the year, when they moved Saddiq Bey to the bench, we were able to be in that press conference and ask him, hey, coach, why did this happen? And he stated, well, so, that this was something that actually originated from Saddiq Bey, if we go back to it. And if we understood what that meant then, because as we came back forward to the season, the notion went from, hey, we need to get his usage rate up, which was at like 29% or whatever, send him to the bench so he can just kind of play by himself, to later realizing, hey, what's working for Saddiq Bey now, because he's playing a little bit different. When he started to actually catch stride, they said, well, looking at the data now, he's a catch and shoot shooter. What we were missing and didn't really read between the lines was they allowed Saddiq Bey to go out there and try and prove what he believed he could be, because some of the players on here, or some of the rumors, were that players were told to go and stand in the corner or just go and be catch and shoot. But in reality, what if they're trying to put the players in their best positions to succeed? If there's and that was been, and I being, having that proximity at least this season, and I look forward to being able to have the ability to, be tier one, if that's what the Pistons deem next season, and to be able to develop even better relationships with these players to get even more from their perspective. But it's been an interesting thing to kind of, be able to get inside of the players' heads as much as we've been able to, as well as the coaches, and be able to see this thing, because the Saddiq Bey thing, this saga has been playing out realistically all season.
Yeah,
it's been an interesting thing with Saddiq Bey.
Yeah, now if you think about it, and like you said, if you go and read kind of between the tea leaves and the reporting and everything that we saw, like a lot of the signs were kind of there. I mean, a couple of weeks ago when the team was in Paris, Troy talked about his desire, how important Isaiah Livers is. There's been reports and suggestions that they wanted to open up more minutes for him in the rotation, because it seems like the role that they were wanting Saddiq to play is kind of the game that Isaiah Livers has. And to me, he seems like the type of guy where he knows to play within his role, and he thrives when he plays within his role. I think, exactly. And I think with Livers, he embraces that role, and I think he'll be able to thrive in that position. But Steve, I kind of want to go to you as our resident draft guy. First of all, it's good to see your beautiful face. Second of all, what were your thoughts when you saw James Wiseman? What was, back when you did a scouting report on him, what was your takeaways on Wiseman, and where are you at on him now as a prospect?
Well, doing this mobile today, I'm kind of on the move, so everybody can hear me good. I'm all good on the audio.
Oh yeah,
I can hear you.
It's crazy.
Hey, the hat is fire too, bro.
Dude, normally Joe Dumars is the one on the phone. This week it's you on the phone.
Yep. I only got one though, so Joe D's got a leg up on me. I only got one.
Are you Joe Dumars, bro?
I wish. I mean, I'm not going to have much positive to say about Wiseman. The number one thing way back when, even back then, was worry, because he was injured. So anytime there's a big man over 7 feet with lower body injuries to start with, everybody's going to be concerned about that, right? Number one. And then the first year didn't go so well. Got injured the second year again with another lower body injury. It's more theoretical than anything else. I understand the upside play, but when I look at this trade, I'm like, who was the best player out of the trade? It was Saddiq, hands down, right?
Well, that's exactly
As
why.
of today,
I
it
mean,
was, yeah.
Troy doesn't like to lose. Like Troy said himself, he loves trades, and I would imagine he loves winning trades. But that's why I think that there's something more than what we're seeing. Like you don't like everyone knew that Saddiq was a better player out of the deal. Like you don't make that move.
Carl
Oh,
getting
thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it,
getting
Ryan.
the roses. Shout out, Carl. I got to put this in there for the podcast. Off
Yeah, I
topic,
mean,
but great work on the vids, Carl, from Ryan Anton.
Oh,
if you
he's
Appreciate it.
if
kicking
you want the
ass,
full
huh? Damn.
scouting report on Wiseman, though, like I can still give it to you because I mean it still reigns true, right?
Definitely
Like,
do that. But
yeah.
by all
So
means,
number one was on offense, possible stretch big. The jump shot looked okay, but more than that was able to be a rim runner, able to do some low post things. Offense was raw. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Like he scored, but there really wasn't any go-to skill yet. It was more like maybe he'll do this, maybe he'll do that. The jump shot looked promising though. That was one of the big upsides. But again, if you look at his G League stats, which is really where he's played the most, he shoots terribly from three. Not a fantastic free throw shooter as well. So on my Twitter at ResballPod, I just posted. That's the only thing I really posted today was the stats from Wiseman's career in the NBA and then the G League stats. So if you want to go look up my Twitter and you can see the stats there for yourself. The rebounding was worrisome. I remember people talking about that too. Like he doesn't rebound as well as you would like from
yeah.
a top pick. And then defense, he looked fine. He looked like a rim protector, right? Like somebody who can play drop coverage. I don't know that he'll necessarily be able to do switches, but definitely more athletic than 1 7'1" guy you want. But as the years have gone by, like less and less draft people have stuck their neck out for him. That's just the thing. If you go look at anybody's, report now, it's that I hope this works out, but I'm not, sticking my neck out here. And a lot of people, as soon as he went into the G League this preseason, were like, that's it. Like, I'm out. I don't really know if he can recover from this because the last top 5 pick I can think of that did that was Josh Jackson. It's not a good sign, right? That's the only part of it that like we have to keep it real. Just like people are saying, like we can't overvalue Saddiq. It's not like we traded away, some diamond for a ruby.
Right.
It's like okay, we've traded somebody who, like you all are saying already, Livers seems to fit better in their rotation. That type of player that they wanted. That's who they wanted Saddiq to be. But again, Wiseman on the other side. This is more than just a reclamation project. Like this is uncharted territory that just doesn't ever really work out once you reach that precipice of like, man, you're not even worthy enough to stick in our rotation.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of wonder if it was more so just the the idea of seeing a guy of like, look, we have to make a difficult decision that isn't sexy, for our salary cap and for where we want to build our team going forward. If we, for the identity of our team, a guy like Isaiah Livers fits better in the rotation. We might not love losing Saddiq Bey, but at the very least, we get someone that we see something in, and there could be upside from it. I mean, I think inherently when you're doing a rebuild, like, anytime you're doing a rebuild in this league, you always kind of need like inherently just a little bit of luck in order for things to, head in the right direction. And I think we've seen Troy Weaver over and over again show that he's willing to take flyers and take risks. And we've seen that it's worked out. I think with Wiseman, excuse me. I think with Wiseman, there's definitely been the stretches and flashes of good play. His rookie year, I thought there were some moments where he showed some, decent promise. But again, as you said, like anytime you have a lower extremity injury with a guy, who's over 7 feet tall and is young, that's generally not something that you love to see. But again, it's like if you compare, like, I guess it's like not the worst return we could have gotten, but again, it's just the wonder of what's his floor even? That's my wonder. Like where even is his floor? Like, because we know his ceiling from the athletic standpoint is at the he has all the gifts. I just have no idea where the starting basis is. And if he's going to be starting, we're going to find out real soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the part of it that I think is messing with everybody's head is that we don't know. We don't know what Wiseman is going to look like. We know what the trends were. So I'm not going to sit here now and act like I'm like something different. Similar to how Steve felt, it's similar to how I felt at the time that he was being drafted and scouted and all of that. So it's like, you want to see whatever Troy saw in him. Maybe Troy saw something that he and his scouts will be able to develop better than maybe the Golden State Warriors. They didn't really have the opportunity, the time. He was dealing with the injuries. Maybe our staff, maybe our medical people, they see something there. Or like I've seen in the comments, maybe he has a plan to flip him. I know that we traditionally overvalue our players, and by we, I'm including everybody, us, the media, the team itself. Like, bro,
I've never been guilty of that.
Rodney
Stuckey
was
perfect.
Bro,
we know,
I
John.
can't say that.
We
That's
know,
straight
we know.
face. I can't.
bro, Rodney Stuckey. I love Joe Dumars. I had this handy just for this. Rodney Stuckey by this gentleman was called the Golden Calf, bro, and untouchable.
So, I think the reason why we overvalue our players, though, is because the inherent insecurity that we have of when we watch players get traded and leave our system and eventually go thrive and have better careers, like the Chris Middletons of the world, the Spencer Dinwiddies of the world, like the people that we've seen come into our system, like in with Saddiq, we saw flashes of a damn good basketball player. At the very least, we know Saddiq Bey can have a spot on an NBA roster for years to come, right? Like we know that for a fact with him, and we saw at times flashes of maybe an all-star berth at one point in his career. I'm not saying he's like a perennial all-star by any means, but I definitely like that's the thing. Whereas, again, with Wiseman, it's like you like for those signs of hope and those like glimmers of life, you have to go back and you have to look back in like August or September at the Japan games in the preseason, right? Like, and even then, like it's little glimmers. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's let me go back to this. I pulled it off the screen. Somebody said, when has
Troy Weaver?
Yeah, when is Troy's risk work? Yeah.
This is something else I wanted to say, and we're going to get into this. With Troy Weaver, with any GM, what you want is a GM who, when something doesn't work out, because none of them are going to be perfect, that they have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way through to Z, so that they're never trapped. We saw GMs get trapped into having to give Andre Drummond the max. Like, Troy Weaver does not strike me as somebody who's ever going to make that mistake or that decision. He's very calculated to the point that anytime people have said, whoa, this might be a mistake, we see him instantly go and cover that up. Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart were gotten with what I would consider to be, value that was less than them. Troy Weaver won those trades, in my opinion, that brought in Saddiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart, but they were down the draft, 16th pick and 20th, 21st, 19th. I forget what
Saddiq
pick Saddiq Bey was it 19th, 16th and 19th. So it's like, when you look at that, and those were 3 first-round picks in that first draft. I don't see the risk. They stated when they drafted Killian Hayes, this was a project. We're going to have to work with them. And those other 2 picks are ones that you're like, let's take a flyer on these guys and see how they pan out. So it's like, I have yet to see the risk. This is one in which you can kind of waltz into free agency and see what you have. But if you know you're not going to pay Saddiq Bey, then I don't really see the risk in it. I can understand if you're saying that the return for Wiseman, but it's like, what were they going to get for him? If we were overvaluing Saddiq Bey, or if we traditionally believe that our players are worth more, that Saddiq Bey was worth more, and this is the return, then it just, in my opinion, it's like, this is what we have to work with. This is almost as if the best of the best. If there was something better, I believe Troy Weaver snatches that up. So this was one of those where the timing was, we get to kind of take a flyer on the player. I said this earlier in the stream. I remember Markelle Fultz was available on the low, or available for just another young player. I was wishing the Pistons just go kick the tires, And so with this, it's like, if we have to digest it that way, that was the only way I was able to digest it earlier, until you hear reports that No, Troy Weaver is really, really, really high on this player. Troy Weaver really, really, really wants this guy to work. The reports are starting and things of that nature. So now my head is just like, all right, let's wait and kind of see what this thing is going to be about. But I believe that this is very, very low risk move. I get that people don't necessarily like the return, but the risk in terms of knowing when to cut bait rather than just staying on that train and paying your draft picks is staying on that train until the wheels fall off with the decisions you've made. You just can't do that. So I honestly applaud Troy Weaver, who's saying instead of going and being prideful, like, no, this pick is the guy. Like, think about, guys, we had a GM. We had a GM who he was too prideful, bro. Y'all gotta understand this. He drafted Rodney Stuckey and was like, yo, Stuckey is this, that, and the other, and then doubled it down and traded Chauncey to try and prove that point. In contrast, Troy is sitting here saying, hey, look, I took a swing on a low end of the first round guy. He proved to be somebody decent. He's just not the third or fourth option we need because we're trying to compete faster than this guy may get there. So we got to cut bait now. Who did they keep? The veterans. They didn't trade Bojan and Alec Burks. That signals to me that this team is trying to do something different next year. And when you're trying to win, what do you see teams that are trying to win do? They cut bait with certain assets, and it looks funny sometimes. But when you're trying to get to the next level, that's what it takes. It takes something to get to the next, to get something.
And quite frankly, too, like if as far as like, with James Wiseman, I really see like I'm not really sure if there's like a runway for him to be like, I'm not sure. I'm not ready to say he's going to be on this team next season. To me, I really see whatever like 27 games we have left as like the full runway of like, of like letting him off the leash, see what he can do. Because I mean, let's be honest, guys, what's good? Like what's the worst that can happen? We're going to lose more games this season. We're going to get further out of the play-in picture in the playoffs. Like at this point, like our fate's been sealed this season. Like we're in the lottery. Like we're at where we're at. So like I guess, like if you are gonna like develop players and have people like get more minutes, like I guess I'd rather see more minutes go to a Wiseman than I would see us go deep down the bench and have Noel start games down the stretch. You know what I mean?
Yep. It's gonna be interesting. Like I said, I think that we all are kind of in agreement on the trade, on like how we feel about the trade, on Saddiq Bey largely. What you said we're not in agreement?
No.
Where do we disagree, brother?
I never think it's good practice to deal somebody on their rookie deal. I never think that's
right.
a good idea.
You did say that. You've been consistent.
Yeah, never. Even with Ivy, like I feel like Ivy needs all 4 years, and especially when you're a small market team. Like just look at the track records, especially in small market teams that end up dealing these guys on rookie deals. It usually ends up blowing up in their face, right? Even someone that the quote unquote worked out, like Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. That's a good example of one that worked for both teams, right? But who's the better player in that, right? Is Tyrese Halliburton. He's a star, man. And Sabonis is good. He's an all-star, but it still never worked out. And it was the fault of the organization that traded the rookie that had the potential, that somebody else was like, hey, we see that piece of coal, we're going to turn it into a diamond. And you touched on it earlier about, the Chris Middletons, Bruce Brown. I mean, we can go back and just look at so many other guys that ended up working out. And it wasn't even that they ended up working out as like superstars, but they ended up finding the role that we all wanted for them, right? Even somebody like Reggie Jackson, where we all like, nobody really disses on him because we know he could be like a good sixth man. We know he could be somebody who is like maybe fourth option, fourth starter. That's just where I don't like it. Is this just seems to be history repeating itself. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I am. But I would just encourage people to look into when guys are traded on the rookie deal, guys like this that drop 51 points in a game, that have the shooting.
Dang, he was preaching.
Yeah, here's what I'll say though. If we get Steve
I just don't like this kind of a trade for anybody.
I feel you. Like the philosophy of it all.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, here's what I'll say, Steve. I would be a little more worried if Saddiq actually ended up going to Golden State. The fact that Saddiq ended up being an Atlanta Hawk no insult to Atlanta. Actually, yes, insult to Atlanta. I have no faith in them being able to have Saddiq Bey be an adequate piece for them. So that's just my opinion on Atlanta, if you want to know that. But
Yeah, it's weird. It's like Wiseman gets traded to a team where there's a bunch of bigs, so like, how's he going to play? And then Saddiq gets traded to another team with a bunch of forwards that they're like, okay, how's he going to play?
also, you think he's going to love playing with Trae Young? Talk about over dribbling. He's going to be just sitting there in the corner for 23 and a half seconds. Then he'll be like, all right, Saddiq, shoot it. He's like, what?
See, with Saddiq Bey, and I generally would agree with you, Steve, but when Troy Weaver went and got 6 first-round draft picks over 3 years, and he's going to get another 1 or 2 this year, I think it put them in a little bit of a cap limbo to where they could not. We all knew they can't hold on to all these players now, and that's where I'm like, in a traditional sense, I wouldn't want to trade that guy. But in a sense like this, where you got 3 guys in the same year who you got to make decisions on, and if they're not the guys who can fit into the rotation to contend during the window that you set, you got to make a decision on them. And that was where, I can understand if we want to say, was Saddiq Bey the right decision? Should it have been Killian or Isaiah or one of the other guys? I think that one is more or less the conversation to have. But then when we do have the conversation, I believe that out of Killian, Saddiq, and Isaiah Stewart, that Saddiq Bey was the closest to his ceiling already. And that this was more or less kind of the type of player he's going to be. And if that's not, because the footwork, the speed, he would have to literally change things from a anatomy level that I just don't think he's going to be able to do. Like his footwork, his speed, his athleticism, those are the things he would need, just in my opinion, from the wing position to really, really, really prove like you think Saddiq can get to like 28 and 4 on a regular basis? I just don't see it.
No.
I'm sorry, Steve just kills me. I was just laughing. So just that just got me, man. I don't know what it was, but
I just don't see it, and that's where I think that they're parsing things. Is it's like, does Saddiq Bey fit into this top 6 or 7? When on this Pistons squad, he was starting to get pushed down the pecking order already. So it's just like, if you go and you add another draft pick and another free agency, who is Saddiq Bey on this team? And then if he's wanting to get paid, what do? Do you pay him?
Can I say one thing really quickly before we keep arguing? My mind would not have been able to take, my mental health and well-being would not have been able to take it if we traded both Saddiq and Bojan, or Saddiq and Burks. Because I was like, if I was going to have to watch whatever offense was going to be without Bojan, like, good Lord.
Yeah, it would have been unwatchable.
Yeah, that's all I have.
I mean, already it kind of it's kind of already unwatchable.
Yeah, again, the trade I always harken back to again is Jeff Green for Kendrick Perkins. This kind of screams that you don't think of Jeff Green as like needing to be there, right? But then when you look further down the line, you're like, yeah, I think they should have had Jeff Green instead of Kendrick Perkins. It's something like that, to where, again, I'm trying not to overvalue Saddiq. He's one of my favorite players. I'm glad I never bought a Saddiq Bey jersey, though. I came close a couple times.
You're right. Kendrick Perkins, one of the most dynamic players of all time. Definitely
exactly right. It just seems like that kind of a deal where, maybe right now it doesn't work out, but like long term and in a couple of years, you're like, oh yeah, they probably needed that guy as like the 6th or 7th man. And maybe it doesn't work out right now. And when you're talking about like they don't want to pay out of the 3, they have to make a decision. I mean, you guys touched on it already. As like, what were the other deals out there, right? I don't think anybody was really calling for Killian. I don't think anybody's really calling for beef stew, right?
No.
But even as we heard from the reporting, though, even when people called on Saddiq, they wouldn't offer anything of significance. Is what we heard back. So like, if it wasn't a James Wiseman, it was maybe. I know we heard reports that the Pistons were talking to the Knicks last night, so it was maybe going to be a Cam Reddish. It was maybe, it was going to be one of these, young pieces that has been riding the bench. Like, in my opinion, like, I don't think this is that far off from getting a Dennis Smith Jr. from Troy Weaver's first year.
And that's what I was saying. It's like, so if we just ride this out with Saddiq Bey, in this scenario, this situation where we actually have an enrichment of talent, this isn't, like I said, this isn't like when we were just picking one first round pick a year and signing average to mediocre like free agents. Now Troy Weaver can go this summer and literally do what he did last year and add 8 new players, 6 or 7 new players. Where does that put like a guy like Saddiq Bey on the pecking order? And are we paying him? You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like if this was like singular first round picks and he was the guy instead of Killian, I would be all for it, and I think he would still be here. But I just like what would you do with him? You know?
I think we all could agree Troy Weaver just drafts too well. If he can start adding at least 1 or 2 busts into the mix every year so that we know with certainty who we're going to pay, that would be great. No, actually keep picking these stars, please. I'd appreciate it.
I think it's more the nuance of the situation. Troy has given himself a full deck, so everybody can be upset and happy with Troy at all times. It really is that. It's like he has trades that make everybody go, "What was that?" And then but other people are like, "Yo, that trade was so awesome." And honestly, with what he's doing, we haven't had a GM here be able to stack the talent and be able to even have the moves kind of work out the way that they have in a very, very long time. No GM since going back to the Bad Boys years has attempted a rebuild like this in Detroit ever. You know, all the other teams have tried to win on the fly or they've won through trades. They haven't really done it through like really taking the time to analyze your young players, select your lineups, pick this and pick that, and then augment with a few free agent signings. So it's a little bit different situation to me. But I don't know, man. It's gonna be an interesting thing moving forward. What do they do? Do you guys think that they hold on to Saddiq Bey? I mean, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes long term? Like, will that absolutely send you over the edge if they wind up doing this again, Steve?
Well, I personally I don't see Beef Stew going anywhere as long as Troy Weaver's in Detroit. That's just me. I think Killian is a guy that very well could be in a deal over the next couple of years. I could see him being packaged in something when Troy Weaver's, starting to make more trades and maybe trying to make more additions in the roster as he has more cap space. I think the reality of it is, I think it's just as Ivy's, been playing better and better in the starting lineup. I think that's made Killian a little bit less necessary in certain areas. And I think, obviously, with Beef Stew, I just if he were to be traded, it's just a scenario I can't even picture. You know what I mean? Like he just feels like he's,
like the heartbeat.
Yeah, 100%.
I agree with that. Just the fabric of it. And that's kind of how we started the year. I didn't know if he was necessarily cut out to be the long-term starter next to Duran. And that was something I was like, yo, let me check this out this season, see what the nitty-gritty is. And I love everything that Stewart brings to the table. Everything that he brings to the table. I think that long-term, his fit is best off the bench. But I'm not going to limit Isaiah Stewart because he's shown that he can kind of transcend those limits. I know he's struggling a little bit right now from behind the arc, but I think that he's warranted that. Give him that. People go through slumps. He's for the most part, the season shown he could put the ball through the net. But I like Stu. I like what Hayes has been doing too, and I think it's largely because of the roles that these guys can fit, the money that they might be able to command, that they're still here right now. We were hoping that Saddiq Bey could fill that Jeremy Grant type of role, or at least I know some people are saying, hey, maybe this is what the Pistons are looking at, getting Saddiq Bey in that type of role, and it just didn't quite work out as well. It's unfortunate because I wanted him to work. I wanted Saddiq Bey here. I like Saddiq Bey a lot. I liked everything that he brought to the table as it relates to his shooting, as it relates to getting inside, as it relates to getting to the free throw line, his work ethic, his mindset. It was a lot to like there. And like you said, Steve, like who wants to even think about this? Because the only way that you realistically can soften a blow of this if Saddiq Bey blows up which I believe he has the tools to not necessarily blow up, like be a star, but like you said, Steve, be something that's like, yo, every time we see him, we're like, shucks. You know what I mean? Like I do
He's in
believe he has
Atlanta.
that potential. I believe he has that potential, man. What'd you say, bro?
He's in Atlanta.
Yeah, that ain't gonna stop him from coming here and dropping 30 on us.
No, you're not wrong. It's just, they'll probably screw it up. It's Atlanta.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be an interesting thing. I did want to get you guys' takes on, because I know we probably have beaten Saddiq Bey and James Wiseman topic dead, but Troy Weaver. What does it say about Troy Weaver? Because I'm seeing everybody all over the place, and we always just say, hey, trust Troy, trust Troy, trust Troy. Are you still trusting in Troy? And Steve, I'll go to you first, man. Because you look like you know what to say.
And I only say that because his faith in Wiseman. Laz Jackson of Detroit Bad Boys tweeted out something to the effect of what I've been told, once Troy makes up his mind about somebody, a player, his evaluation, he's just going to ride it out. And to me, that's a double-edged sword, right? It's okay, it's great to have faith in somebody, but with somebody like Wiseman, who've already had these clear indications that I don't think you're a top 5 pick anymore, right? I don't think you're a starting center in the NBA. I am not even sure you're a backup. If this is just to prove a point, it feels like it's just to prove a point to me. And again, I don't know what the other deals are. This is where it's tricky, because I can criticize it here all day, but again, if this literally was the best deal they could find, then you just got to take it, right? And they didn't want to pay Saddiq anyway. But to me, I just wish there was something else out there. What have we all been saying here when we say, hey, what does this team need? We all said, what, a wing defender? We all said a shooter. We all said another big that can bang in the post. Guess what? James Wiseman is none of those. That's the only reason why this to me is man, it just seemed like there was somebody that was at least a useful rotation player traded out for somebody who I don't have much faith in as a draft person, seeing this top highly rated guy just continue to get demoted and go down.
Okay,
yeah.
but Steve, I understand that, and I think a lot of your criticisms are valid, but at what point does Troy Weaver get some benefit of the doubt? That's my question. Just because, he is the reason that Cade Cunningham's in the building. He is the reason that Jaden Ivey's here. He is the reason that we have Isaiah Stewart. He's the reason that Saddiq Bey was here in the first place. He was the reason that we were able to get, Jeremy Grant. He turned Mason Plumlee into freaking Bojan Bogdanovic, for God's sakes. The Pistons are in a better situation they've been in 15 or 16 years. I understand trading away a guy in Saddiq Bey on his rookie contract's difficult to swallow, especially for a guy in Wiseman that I'm not super high on as well. I just to say, no, I don't trust Troy. We just don't trust Troy anymore, just off of one trade or just because he likes a guy that we don't like. To me, it's just a little extreme.
It's not just one thing, though. You already know my takes on Ivy. I thought that was kind of an iffy thing from here. So this is more of a
15,
snowball
5,
thing.
5. He's second in his class in points. He's number one. What has he done to not prove that pick's been a good pick so far?
He's a rookie. We can't say anything definitively about anybody. I'm not going to sit up here and say he should have taken Mathurin or Mathurin's better either, because again, I can't say anything about him, right? And if this was Wiseman's rookie year, I'd be saying the same thing. But this is a third-year player, and again, Ivy's defense has been why this team sucks so much, and it's not just bad. You can hear people like Bryce Simon of Motor City Hoops say Ivy's not just bad as a defender; he's bad for a rookie defender. It's below where it ought to be. Go look up B-Ball Index. He's done a lot of great things. They've done a lot of great things with tracking guards, wings, all these things. Ivy's at the bottom in terms of defense for everybody and far away.
You're right. We should fire Troy tomorrow. Then we'll get the boxes.
That's one of the things.
We'll pack everything up. He can go in the morning.
That's one of the things there. All these reclamation projects. Who's worked out of these reclamation projects? Who's become a useful player out of these reclamation projects?
I mean, I'm not saying all these reclamation projects are great, but at the very least, I mean, he was able to turn Josh Jackson into, they were able to get Marvin Bagley out of that, who is a better player than Josh Jackson. And Marvin Bagley, when healthy, has been decent. He hasn't been a bust. He's been better than he was in Sacramento. And when we were actually winning games and getting better last year, he was a big reason why. Granted, part of that was just because we actually had a guy who could catch lobs and was a lob threat for Cade Cunningham, something that we needed and just didn't have. But I don't think it's like I don't think any of the reclamation projects have been an outright disaster.
Right, but they haven't worked out or like come to some kind of benefit, because the whole point of them was to have somebody that ends up being like a long-term piece, or at least, again, a useful part of the rotation, right? And Bagley's still in process, so like neither of us can say he's worked out definitively or he's not. So, and again, I'm not here just to say like, oh, like fire Troy Weaver tomorrow or anything like that. But the thing of like blindly trusting and being like, yeah, I trust the direction. For me, it's more like I don't know what the direction is now, so I'm gonna have to wait until the off season to really see like, okay, who does he sign next? What's going on? Because to me, like bringing in Burks and Bojan, although they've been great, they don't fit the timeline, right? Like in 2 to 3 years, are they still going to be on this team? To say you're going to invest in them, are they still going to be at this level? That's just where I pause, and I'm like, okay, right now I don't really see the value in this at all.
Are we going to have a whole team full of young guys though?
Like that's what I don't get. Like just because we kept them beyond today doesn't mean we're keeping them for 3 years. Like they're still tradable in the summer. But that defeats the whole purpose of like trying to find the core, right? I thought that was the point of Troy Weaver's rebuild, right? Was to find the core, try and stick to that, and then go. And then we're still here in year 3. And I'm just being realistic again. Like how many GMs make it to year 4 when you're losing like all these games every single year?
Yeah, it's with the Pistons. I think the most interesting thing was their commitment to a restoration. If they were committing to winning, like they had been doing, then I would be like, yeah, what is Troy doing? But since their commitment was actually to restore and to fill the cupboards, which were absolutely barren, they didn't have anything, man. We were over here bumping our gums about Luke Kennard and Bruce Brown, and the Clippers gave him the bag and were like, nah,
that's what I'm saying, dude. Like, can we not look at the franchise and the direction that they've been and realize that, like, I'm not blindly trusting. You're comparing to where they've been in the past, who they were drafting before, and in comparison, there's more young talent in this roster than any other general manager got in Detroit in the last 20 years, Steve.
It's like Blake.
Yeah, but you're saying that because it's terrible, right? You're just saying they're only saying that because it's been terrible.
He has as much, if not more, young assets than Orlando, and they started with 7 or 8 first-round picks.
Yeah, and it's not just young assets. It's the fact that Cade, Jalen, and Jaden those guys are high level, high talent, high level young assets. Those things matter. When you're saying you have 3 young players who all have all-star level potential, all I need is one more draft pick and $60 million in a free agency, and some role players like Killian, Saddiq, Isaiah, Bojan. This team is set up to have one of those type of Cleveland Cavalier type jumps.
And the closest got to that in 2009 was Brandon Knight and Greg Monroe.
And so it's like,
who's the number 1 overall consensus pick this year?
Victor Wembanyama.
So what happens when we pick him? What happens with all these big men?
So trades just can't happen after the draft?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, like, if there's a plan in place, then why take a chance on Wiseman? Why draft Jalen Duren? Why have Beef Stew? Why have Marvin Bagley? You can't play all those guys together.
I think it's philosophy, and I think it's this notion of they didn't intend to play them all together. Bagley was somebody signed on a very team-friendly, controllable deal that fit just before the window to win was there. When he was signed there, that meant that his deal was going to end during or right after Troy's 5th year, which most people stated their window to actually start competing was in year 5. So I believe Marvin Bagley's here for now to do what he did when he was first brought in, and that's just be a serviceable big man so that the guards have somebody they can play with. If they don't have like a pick and roll big, which they had absolutely nobody when they first got here, so much so that, like, you're right. When Trey Lyles got here, we were like, oh my God, it's a big that can catch the ball and go to the rim. When Marvin Bagley got here, we were like, oh, it was so much so that the Pistons went 10-14 down the stretch with him, Cade, and Grant. And so it's like, if Troy Weaver continues on with what I believe to be his direction, and that's, tear it down to the studs, identify your core 3 or 4, and then build around that. Saddiq and those guys, he got pushed out. That's realistically what happened. is I do think they're in a really good spot, and I think it's a mix. The past has been trash, bro. As Tayshaun would call it, buffoonery. It's
Well,
been some trash.
I
But
make
these picks are like the solutions that Troy's bringing to the table, I believe, are reputable. What's good, brother?
So to answer your question, Steve, the reason why you continually bring in more big men and the reason why you're trying to cycle that in is because the importance of that position. You want to make sure that if you get one that doesn't work out, you have the ability to bring in others and actually develop and cycle through. The Philadelphia 76ers, back when they were starting the process, consecutively drafted Nerlens Noel, Jahlil Okafor, and Joel Embiid. Ultimately, when they found the big that they wanted and to keep, they got rid of the other two and traded them for assets where they could build around Embiid. So, obviously, they're not going to be keeping Wiseman. They're not going to be keeping Bagley. They're not going to be keeping all these guys forever. I think we all know that Jalen Duren is probably the center of the future, and that if anything, with Wiseman, you're just seeing what's there, and if possible,
The
maybe
center of the now.
maybe.
I've been correcting everybody like that today, by the way. Everyone's like, Jalen Duren's the center of the future.
Also,
center of
also, yeah, but also. To answer your question, the reason why we didn't get Bull was because when we traded for him, he failed his physical, and they actually found that he had a fracture in his foot. And he had a surgery and was out for the season. And when
Troy still wanted him.
And when Orlando traded for him, everyone looked at him like they were mad because he failed his physical and that they were just wasting a roster spot. But we don't like to think about those things. That's okay.
Yeah, the Bol thing, that was unfortunate because you look at what he's doing on the court right now. And honestly, I'm wondering if Troy just wants a guy like that. If Troy if he's seeking out, even in like this Wiseman deal, a guy who can grab the rebound and go the full length of the court. I don't know if he's looking at Wiseman as a project, if he's looking at Wiseman as something that's going to come in right away and contribute, as something that they want to be able to take a look at right away. Because when I hear starting, first I was like, does he think he's going to be something? But then instantly it was like, you know what? When they really started letting Saddiq go to work, it realistically was to put him on display. Maybe James Wiseman is a guy they're looking at flipping so that they can give Steve a double heart attack. 2 rookies traded on their rookie deals. You know what I mean? But it wouldn't shock me or surprise me if, the Pistons, 25th pick in the first round, a guy they want, and then bloom, James Wiseman and a second round pick for that pick. It wouldn't surprise me one bit. So it's like you hope he plays well, so that at the very least, going into this offseason, you have everything that you need. Because right now, I love what Marvin Bagley brought to the table, but the rim running, the athleticism, and the rim protection that James Wiseman, if it pans out the way that scouts thought, like these are his strengths, the Pistons need that desperately right now. They
probably
need
be Asta La Vista Marvin, in all honesty.
What'd you say?
It'd probably be Asta La Vista Marvin.
If those things came to fruition for Wiseman or anyone they picked up, because Steve is right. If they went and they got Wemby or any of these guys, look, y'all, Steve has been putting in work. It's going to be hitting the channel soon. 5 or 6 of these videos have been recorded already, going over the draft prospects. So shout out to Steve, shout out to Resball Pod, and you're going to be seeing a lot more from him very soon. Got news for you, bro. But if they got a Wemby, even if they don't, there are bigs and wings in this in this draft that got me pretty excited, and they could play that similar type of role that you see Wemby play, that you see kind of Wiseman show flashes of and whatnot, of being able, even Evan Mobley kind of. When we played the Cavs the other night, that's about the closest that I can get. And somebody said it earlier on our stream. Maybe they're trying to be like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And we chuckle, but I'm like, if that's what they're looking at, I kind of get it. But we got to see it. We wanted to be fair to Killian Hayes. We thought there were some confidence issues. He had only played 60 games, didn't play a full season. So I'm gonna try and do the same thing with Wiseman and hope at the very least there's like 5 second-round picks or a low first-round pick in waiting for James Wiseman at the very least, man. Hey, you know what? What you think about that, man?
He's a heck of a player.
Brandon Miller. What you think of, Steve?
Brandon Miller's the one that I'm like, if you don't have Brandon Miller in your top 5 now, like you suck at draft evaluations because he's just so easy to see he will work in the NBA. The shooting from distance, he's a volume shooter. He has the upside to be a primary scorer. Defensively, like I don't buy into him as being like a fantastic defender, but I also don't buy into him as like somebody who's never going to get cooked. You watch him, he knows positioning. You can stick him at power forward and he'll be better than somebody like a Tobias Harris, who's a good player for a playoff team in Philadelphia, right? So above that level, but on the shooting level, somebody like Peja Stojakovic, who that's my comp for him. Every time I watch him, I'm like, I don't see him being like number 1 or number 2, but I definitely see him as like this number 3 high level guy that you always want on your team. And even at like 33 years old or however Peja was at the end of his career, broken down, even then he helped the Mavericks win a title and was fantastic for those Kings teams, putting up like 20 points, just raining down threes. Like Brandon Miller's fantastic.
Yep. I love it. And I almost spit my water out going through these comments, man. Shout out Bob Russell. He said all this is happening because we bought the till back. Bad Don't blame it on the till, man. I'll be for real with you. For whatever reason, they look good in the till, man. Their
best record is in the teal.
Really good. Wait, say that again.
Their highest win percentage is in the teal. They play their best when they're in the teal. So, just saying.
Look at Sean over there with the only person representing the till too.
Maybe I'm a little biased. Maybe I'm a little biased.
He was over there looking all leaning all into the camera with his teal shoulder and everything. I love it, man. You know what I love about this is that people are true to, their coverage, to their analysis, to, their beliefs and their opinions. And I believe that creates the best dialogue. It helps us to be able to really get into, who these players are, this team, where they might be headed. There's things that I learned on these panels. There's things I hope you guys learn. There's things that the commenters in the chat, they teach us sometimes. And sometimes when they say things that jog our memory, even if it's something that we disagree with. And so it's like, I love this. I love this component of it all, because we're not just sitting around just, shooting it just to shoot it. We're literally sitting here covering a team and parsing these things and being able to analyze professionally. And for all of the people that do watch, it's not like people are sitting here watching just because, this is just a joke. People are spending their money. People are investing their time. Fans literally revolted against the Lions and Matt Millen because it matters here. It just matters a little bit more. It's like the reason why we're here doing this right now is because what is the line of delineation sometimes between our most passionate fans and our professionals who cover this team? And that's why I kind of started the way I did. It's like when we come here and we do this for the people that truly love the Pistons and truly love Detroit sports, let's truly talk about it, man. There's a lot of different ways that people feel about the things that go on here. And just because I might have a Kool-Aid type approach to it, or Sean Murphy might put his from half court approach to it, doesn't mean that there isn't a Steve out there to put his approach to it, or Carl. And that's what I love about it, man. I absolutely love it. And it creates awesome, awesome dialogue. I do.
Yeah, absolutely. That did.
Hey, Crusader too.
I mean, it's all family too, right? And to me, like, even though I say no on Troy Weaver, it's more of the when your parents, you did something super bad and they didn't get mad at you and they were just like, son, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. Like, that's how I feel today. It's like, Troy, I'm not mad at you, I'm just disappointed is all. And then you move forward, right?
And I understand that perspective, Steve. For me, it's more so the people that are like calling for his seat or like, what are we even doing here? Like that's where I'm like, guys, like it doesn't take much to see like the leaves of like where the improvement's gonna be, or like where, I don't know. It's just, to me, it's when people just completely forget or don't acknowledge the other successes or the things that are there. That's my thing. It's like even with the Dwayne Casey thing, I think we were like talking even before the show, Carl, and like we were like talking about like, who's like Dwayne Casey's like development projects been. I'm like, does he not get credit for like people like Saddiq Bey? And like, and I think you said something like, well, he was destined to be good. I was like, well, yeah, but like Dwayne Casey still was there. Like he still was helping. Like I don't, like, to me, it's like like, I don't know. It's like we love to like put criticisms on like in extremes when and then we don't like to acknowledge when there's like, good things that are happening too. That's my thing.
Someone says, John Steger said, success is winning, in my opinion. And it's like, you can't win when you're trying to rebuild, though. That's actually the opposite of success. In a rebuild, you have to do what's right for the team, even if that's taking a step back. And that's one of the things that I love about Troy Weaver when he stepped into the job. The thing he said right away is, I'm not moving at none of y'all's paces. This is a restoration that's going to move at my pace. And he specifically called it a restoration and not a process, because he said this thing is going to go at the pace of right, not at the pace of fast, not at the pace of try to win now. Because, guys, the last 3 times the Pistons went to the playoffs, it was under the mandate of win now. And guess what? They got swept each time. Just good enough to get in, but nothing really there to push this team or propel this team forward. What you got, Sean?
And they got more wins than this time last year, and they don't even got Cade.
Yeah.
So shut up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Victor.
Or
Yeah.
I
Listen,
love
in all
this. I'll
like,
speak it into existence, bro.
listen.
Keep that going, bro.
Look, we spoke Cade into existence. We got to do the same with Victor, man.
Well, in all seriousness, here's the other thing too. Success is winning, in my opinion. Yeah, sure. If you're breaking it all down to brass tacks, we all show up obviously to win the games. That's what you show up to do. But when you have a program that was middling, that was subpar, that was getting to the first round of the playoffs only to get swept each and every time, when you have a franchise that hasn't won a playoff game since 2008, since the late great Flip Saunders was a part of our program and was helping coach us, that's when you know that you have to strip it down to the buds, start from the beginning, build up a culture, and you don't just get to win every single game when you do that. You have to get young. You have to bring in players who have to learn how to win, and you don't get to the top of the mountain without falling a little bit and learning how to climb. That's just the reality of it. You can't just, the reality of it is they had quite a bit more at the time of the new year. And then after the new year was when Cade was actually starting to pop off, when they were starting to get more wins. They had double the wins at New Year. So context matters. Even then, they don't have Cade
14
Cunningham.
post All-Star break with Cade Cunningham. People say no winning. Listen, they were on like a 200% winning percentage. Like that's where they were headed. Then Cade Cunningham, like Sean said, started absolutely going ham. After that All-Star break, Jeremy Grant started to settle in. Marvin Bagley was doing work, and they went 10-14 for a good stretch. You got to understand, some of those losses were by design too, like pulling Cade Cunningham out during the clutch.
John, this is year 3. You realize rebuilds generally take 5-6 years, right? You generally, like the Memphis Grizzlies, actually, it took them 4 or 5 years before they actually got Ja Morant.
Years.
Yeah,
and it's not 3 years of blowing it up though. The first year was Blake Griffin. Like, it's not 3 years of blowing it up. When they drafted Cade Cunningham, that's when things started. That was year 1. The first year, you can't even call that a foundational year. That was almost pulling this team from out of the abyss. The Pistons were trash. They were not in a good spot at all.
That was bringing the car to the scrap yard and ripping out the parts.
Right. They didn't even put no engine. They didn't even put like nothing else in. No axles. Nothing, no transmission. They didn't even care about floor mats, bro. So it's like Troy is having to restore this thing, and he's trying to do it meticulously. When they say restore, they're not talking about the going to work Pistons, because the going to work Pistons blueprint was who? The Bad Boys. They've all stated this is about doing it the right way, like the Bad Boys. And when you look back at that team, there's no way that you're gonna. Here you go. I knew Chuck was gonna be on it. When you I was just about to say this though. Like, when you look at that squad, they didn't start too good. It was a process for them. It was a struggle for them. And they went through the draft and they augmented with free agent signings that fit them. Like Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, drafts, man. Dennis Rodman drafted. A lot of their stars from that squad were drafted, and they had to grow together. They had to make some shrewd moves. Some of the players that were mainstays, they had to get rid of right before championship series. But it took some time. And if they're going to restore, it's about making sure you find who's our Isaiah, who's our Joe, who's our Dennis, who's our Bill, who's our Rick Mahorn. Not that they play the exact same way, but they're going to have that type of an impact when they
Michael got to his first finals in his 7th year. And he won his first playoff series, I'm pretty sure, in his 3rd or 4th year. takes time. And that's the arguable GOAT. So like you can't just say like, oh, well, we're in year 3, we should be in the playoffs. Like, no, these guys are like 21. Like these guys come out of college, like as much as like I like Jaden Ivey, like he's 20. Like he's a rookie guard. His job is to come in and learn how to play. Like these guys, like the average age of an NBA MVP is 28 years old. Cade Cunningham is 21. Jaden Ivey is 20. Jalen Duren is 19. Isaiah Stewart is 21. Do you realize a pattern? That's about 7 years younger. So yeah, it takes a little bit to learn how to win and to grow in this game.
Yeah, and John,
that is not year 3 of Memphis rebuild. No. You clearly were not paying attention. You actual dumbass. The day the rebuild began was when Marcus Soul was traded out of their building. You don't know shit, and you just showed yourself. Have a good one, buddy. Anyway,
John,
good Lord.
2 seconds.
This is what I'm dealing with? This is who I'm arguing with? Come on.
Health has a large part to do with it in Cade Cunningham.
Google's free,
if John Morant was injured, they're not going to be looking like a good team. They're just not. They're not. I think the hard part for people right now is accepting that Cade Cunningham is that deal. Losing him is going to lose a lot for this Pistons team. Even if you don't think that Cade Cunningham is going to be a superstar, he's good enough that you're going to notice a huge difference. It might not be in wins and losses because as it relates to clutch players, last year he was pretty much the only one we had, maybe Jeremy Grant a little bit. This year, things were designed to be much better. Do you know how many games last year Cade Cunningham did his right to left cross, left to right cross, right in and out, shook the defender, went right into the middle of the paint, passed it out to a three-point shooter for a dunk, and we lose the game? Or dunk, 3 times down the court, and because the other team is just so much, not even that so much better, they're just not missing open shots. Now all of a sudden we're down 10 like that. Like that stuff matters. Now all of a sudden you bring in a team full of shooters. So if you have one of the most clutch players in the league, I don't mean just as a rookie, in the entire NBA, Cade Cunningham was verifiably one of the best players in the clutch time. You surround him now with professional scorers, professional shooters, not people that we think, oh, Saddiq Bey can be a shooter. I mean, guys who this is what they do. Hey, I wake up and I poop 40% from 3. My name is Bojan Bogdanovic. Nice to meet you, Cade. And then when people think, because what was happening to Cade? What was his double team, right? Wasn't it like amongst like star level?
Literally
Wasn't he
from
getting
game
double
1.
teamed and being defended? The stats say like a star. Well, what if you got a Bojan? What if you got an Alec Burks? That's exactly how you bust that. Exactly how you bust that. Because who's guarding Alec Burks one-on-one? You're gonna leave him open? You're gonna leave Bojan open? These are the parts of it, man. Oh my gosh, y'all about to make me get back into coaching or camps or something. These are the components of the game that are missing when you lose a connector like Cade. Troy was like, yo, Jalen Green is enticing, except for the fact that we don't have our connector yet. That's huge. They made this pick because of the what effect he was going to have amongst this entire team. When you lose that guy at this stage in rebuild, it might not show up in wins and losses, but you will see it as it relates to the way this team looks on the court. And they look hapless sometimes, man.
It's like the Thunder. They lost Chet at the beginning of the season, but the reality of it is they were able to be just fine because they have who? SGA, their connector, a guy who plays a very similar game to Cade Cunningham, by the way, and a guy who's been able to take them to the next level, take them over the top. And so I think you look at the fact that that's what's going to happen when you have guys that are in, and that's what happens when you have guys that are in and out of the lineup. All right, is Wiseman going to be handed the starting spot when Duren has looked so good? So I don't think Jalen Duren's going to the bench. I don't think he's being.
I think it's spooky hours right now.
Like
both playing.
Like I don't see a world where they just go, "Hey Jalen, we're just going to move you to the bench for a guy that's been in and out of the rotation." Like that's just not happening. He's been playing too good, right? Like we've seen that Detroit wants to play with the 2 big systems, so I think this is what they're experimenting with. I personally am curious to see how it goes. But I think they are to answer your question. I don't think Jalen Duren's getting benched at all.
Nope. Hey, Troy, I'm not worried about Cade. The surgery that he had was to correct this issue, not to try and make it more like less pain. This was to make sure that it's like he's not injured at all. And he's been playing with this injury since he was in high school or even before. So this is a measure with the Pistons were like, hey, we're going to get ahead of this. He didn't have to have the surgery now. They want next year to be that year, so much so that they say have the surgery now and you can be practicing before this season is over so that you can come back and understand exactly what we're talking about. So that's what it is with Cade. I'm not worried with him. He's listening to the medical staff. The medical staff is actually taking this extremely serious. Just in contrast, again, and that's why I love our panel because we have a lot of different connections, a lot of different eras represented.
Wait, so you mean to tell me?
Yeah.
You mean to tell me that Cade was playing like that, injured?
Talk, bro.
Are you saying that this guy's been having a shin injury since high school and he was still the consensus #1 overall pick?
Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
And the fact that he's going to be able to have like not just like he's rehabbing right now, but by the time the season's done, 2 weeks after the season's done, he and Ashton are going to be able to get in the gym and get to work. Like,
yep.
Shout out Ashton, the trainer, bro.
Well,
Ashton's a real one, man. Ashton's an absolute real one. By the way, people are saying, well, not the Grizzlies. They don't deal with that. Ja has a winning record when like the Grizzlies have a winning record when Ja's out. That's because of the other players that they drafted, beyond the 3 years that you think the rebuild started in, guys like Dylan Brooks, who they drafted 5 years, 6 years ago, guys like Desmond Bane, who's been a part of that process as well. They also have veterans like Steven Adams, this isn't like something where this all just stumbled together overnight. Like this Memphis team was being restructured and all like rebuilt during the 2010s. Like this is why they weren't on your televisions very often, people. like, do I have to explain how this works? Like if you don't see them, they're not that good. Jaren Jackson was drafted before John Morant, by the way. So this whole
covet Jaren Jackson, bro. Like I want Jaren
a second overall pick.
I
before
want
that.
I'm serious, Ryan Anton, man. If there's one player, and I don't know why, I have no idea why. Like I know I joke about Devin Booker. I know we've talked about Jabari Smith. If there's one player that I actually have wanted in a jersey, in a Pistons jersey, it's been Jaren Jackson for a few years now, man. This guy just goes, and that speaks really largely to the Memphis Grizzlies rebuild. They found some of those foundational players. Would you guys happen to say, like, not that they're the same player, but that Jaren Jackson, to a large degree, is kind of like their Isaiah Stewart?
I would say he's more like their Jalen Duren. I would say the heart and soul of that team. I would say their Isaiah Stewart isn't even necessarily like a big. I would say the heart and soul of their team, the guy that kind of like they look to as their leader, is Dylan Brooks, which I think a lot of people have pointed out, and I kind of share the opinion. I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing. I know they have I know another guy as well that could kind of fit that mold is Steven Adams, because he's just kind of a rock and a solid piece for them. Like he's just a stable figure that's just that's just like a strong presence in the post, like getting rebounds, like always healthy. It seems like to me, I would say those would be those guys for Memphis, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, one more thing. I'm going to stop entertaining this guy, but he said they made clear progress in year 3, though. Let me say why. Hey, dumbass! Because Ja was healthy. Okay, that's it.
Thanks for clearing that up, Sean.
I did.
I'm a little confused there.
Google's free, like Basketball Reference is available. Like it's a free website that you can go to. Just so you guys know.
What he said? Oh, hey, no, Jay Israel. He's pretty dope. One of the regulars in the chat. He said he was just responding to us comments about Cade injury, comparing Cade's injury to Ja, team wise. And yeah, I get it now. They're a much more robust team. I believe that Troy is going to have us in that similar type of position a lot faster than them. When you look at the other rebuilds in the league, like Philly and Memphis or even Phoenix, these guys were kind of in some hopeless situations for a long time. Then they got their guy and they were still kind of losing even after they got their guy for a few years after that. We got our guy in Cade and he hasn't been able to really play the way we've wanted. But realistically, they have an opportunity to take that Cleveland Cavaliers type jump when they were winning 30 games a year, and then and they had high draft picks on their team. Did they not? Were they not? They had draft picks in the back court. They had draft picks in the front court, and then all of a sudden they were able to make one trade for Jared Allen. One trade, bro. One trade. And everything changed. This was before the Donovan Mitchell thing, and they went from like 30-win team, like competing with the Pistons for draft picks position, to literally making the playoffs.
By the way, they traded for Donovan Mitchell in year 5. Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns made it to the finals and the playoffs in year what of their rebuild? Year 5 or year 6? Like, it's like you can, like, again. Moral of the story tonight, guys. Google is free and available to you. Use it.
Yeah.
Please.
I did want to get your comments on what do you believe when Cade is back, if Wiseman is on this roster, what do you believe he brings to the table for Cade Cunningham?
You know, I can't really say definitively because Wiseman's been so like inconsistent everywhere, and the Warriors also have not really featured him a lot to know like what his consistent skills are. Right? Theoretically, is another pick and roll big, right? Maybe you would hope the shooting, like even like a 16-foot jumper, would be there, but that's the thing that really has not come around a lot at all. Definitely another lob threat. I think it is very similar to Marvin Bagley. Like Sean was saying earlier, I think if this works out, that Bagley's pretty much gone because Wiseman is that same type of player who actually might play defense.
Exactly.
Sorry, Marvin Bagley.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what you're looking for, that's realistically what you're looking for. It's really like upside at this point.
You know, Steve.
And again, not only to say like I'm not a big believer in Wiseman, but also it's always unfair to put something on a player that they don't, that like is an unrealistic expectation, right? My biggest example is always Deshaun Stevenson. What does anybody ever remember about Deshaun Stevenson?
I forgot he existed until now.
Yeah, what's the only thing you remember about him? Anybody?
You talking about with Gilbert Arenas?
No, Deshaun Stevenson.
No. I mean, you talking about his interaction with Gilbert Arenas?
His scouting report was that he was supposed to be Michael Jordan, right? That's what like so many people remember for him, and it's unfair because those things and the Gilbert Arenas thing too, those overshadow the fact this guy was a champion, right? This guy won a title with the Mavericks. He had a fantastic long career. So like, don't put unrealistic expectations on players. That's just one of my old things too. It's like, come on, man. Yeah, like it's unfair. Poor Deshaun Stevenson.
Just because they shoot left-handed does not mean they're James Harden.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Thank you for saying that. Seriously, every year, right?
Yeah. And just so y'all know,
next James Harden.
Yeah, just so y'all know, Gilbert Arenas and Deshaun Stevenson. What, man? They've had some pretty insane stuff go down, and what they had a shooting competition that almost literally turned into physical shooting competition. So yeah, look it up. As Sean has said, Google.com is free. So yeah, those are the two things that I know about Deshaun Stevenson, is that he was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan, and that him and Gilbert Arenas got into some wild stuff, bro. And honestly, that's where I was playing my college ball in DC. Was friends with Andre Blatch, who got drafted by the Wizards during that same time. His cousins played on my college team. So, you know, we so let's say we were privy to some things, man. And that was a wild time. So as soon as you said his name, I was just like, sheesh. Michael Jordan and Gilbert Arenas. That's what I remember about him. That's what I remember. But hey, I think this was a good one, man. I think this was a good one. I don't know if there's anything left. I'm looking over notes. I'm looking at the title. Is there anything else other than Carl is amazing at Lions videos?
Man, there's nothing I can
all
think
videos,
of,
man. I'm tripping.
Yeah, I think we covered it all. I personally now I'm looking at when's the next Pistons game, and I'm curious to see, the debut of James Wiseman and what that's gonna look like. I will say I do find it funny that of the 2 games I've been to in Detroit this year, one of them was when the Warriors were in town. And I remember specifically watching closely James Wiseman and just going, I wonder what his career is gonna be like. And little did I know.
You did this, Sean.
We're gonna find out.
I am at fault. But the Pistons play tomorrow night at home against the Spurs. So the Jakob Poeltl-less Spurs. So maybe James Wiseman can go for 70. No, I'm kidding. But again, we don't like that. That's just the low expectation, though. We don't want to set too high of expectations. Like Steve said, 70 is a modest thing to expect. But
10 for 10 from 3-point line.
But I will say, to me, now that the deadline's done, I look forward to All-Star break and the Rising Stars Challenge with Duran and Ivy. And then from there, I think personally, I look to how this team is gonna play down the stretch for the All-Star break, and then more importantly, draft coverage, baby. The lottery's getting closer and closer. Let's go.
Steve is not excited.
Steve's not excited. No, he's not.
It's like
that's
season.
Steve's Christmas.
My season, yeah.
Steve, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Is the day after the draft, is that like in the scene in Elf where Santa comes in and it's like, now it's time to start on next year's Christmas? Is that like, do you start like researching 2024 like the day after the draft?
I'm always researching that. I mean, I'm looking at guys now. I'm all about Xavier Booker. I can't wait to see him in Michigan State, man. Come on, I would stay ahead.
Are you at like 8-year-old
No.
games? Like,
That's the Troy Weaver at the AAU game. So hi,
that is the one thing I'll never do is I won't talk about kids until they're like entering college, because I think that's part of the issue. Like, I'll write a piece on this later, but like what's happened with Amani Bates, like that happens too often. And again, it goes back to the Deshaun Stevenson thing. It's putting high expectations before somebody's ready for them. We're putting unrealistic expectations a lot of times. So I won't talk about dudes until they're in college, because you don't be out there yelling at 5th graders like, clean up your footwork on that jump shot. Like, come on, man.
If Lucas doesn't have a recorder shoved up his nose, he has really good footwork in the post.
That's
he has pizza sauce on his jersey.
Oh my god! When he's not eating paint and sniffing Sharpies, he can make some free throws. But
man,
with that, guys,
wrap it up for us, Sean.
I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to Woodward Pistons Table Talk. Be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, smash that mother notification bell so you don't miss all the content that we have coming your way here. Also, be sure you head over to woodwardsports.com and check out the work that Brandon Dent, aka my guy Detroit Kool-Aid, is doing for Detroit Pistons. Also, be sure you go over and check out what my guy Carl Collins is doing at Carl Collins Prod. Be sure you're checking out Steve's work over at Detroit Bad Boys, as well as on Resball Pod. And you can check my work over on my channel over at From Half Court. Also, I have a new show I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Fridays called Mornings with the Murph. You can check that out there's information for that over there as well. And my first article with Detroit Bad Boys will be coming soon. So stay tuned.
Hey.
But with that, folks, I want to thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will catch you guys next time for We're Pistons Table Talk, baby.
I just had to put this up before we go. I know what he meant, but Hayes, Borbin,
Borbin Big Danovich.
I don't know why I said we the Borf.
We the Borf.
Borban.
I love it. I love it. Right on time. Right on time.
Bourbon.
Yo, that was. I would have.